Panel, the motion before us today is simple yet defining. Nigeria's pursuit of progress should prioritize pragmatism over morality. And team propositions start boldly to say yes, it should. Let's begin with clarity. Pragmatism, it is not recklessness. It's not about making rash or heartless decisions. It is the discipline of choosing what works without bias, without sentiment, and without fear of being labeled. It is the courage to choose solutions that offer results even when it offends comfort. A pragmatic leader does not ask, what will people say? They ask, will it work? Because history does not applaud good intentions. It applauds impacts. Morality, on the other hand, is not a fixed marble. It's a malleable clay. What is considered right or wrong often bends with time, culture, and circumstance. Take murder, for example. It is immoral to kill, yes. But until the person being executed is a child trafficker who sold toddlers for body parts, the society does not call it immoral. It calls it justice. So, morality itself is relative. What matters is the impact and the outcome. And that, my judges, is the language of pragmatism. Progress, it means a visible development in the nation's well-being and human dignity with actions that lead to long-lasting results, not mere fixes. This motion is not just a debate. It is a mirror to Nigeria's reality. While we argue what is right, our roads remain bad, our youths remain jobless, and our systems remain corrupt. This motion must ask the question Nigeria has been too scared to face. Do you want to remain righteous, or do you want to become functional? Panel, my first speaker will be talking about moral, legal, and economic justification. My second speaker will talk about pragmatic reform measures, make rebuttals, and further reaffirm our stance. My third speaker will go ahead to make a head-to-head comparison as to why pragmatism should be prioritized in our pursuit for progress. According to World Bank in 2023, 63% of Nigerians live in multi-dimensional poverty. The Global Innovation Index ranks us 109th out of 133 countries, below nations we once outspaced. Yet, Nigeria spends 8.3 trillion naira annually on government recurring expenditures, mostly salaries, with little investment in productivity. Members of the House panel of impeccable adjudicators, I am unjust, not the premise giver of the team proposition. I will end with this quote: Solus Re Publica, Suprema Lex. The safety of the state is the supreme law. If Nigeria wants to progress, if we want to live up to our name as the giants of Africa, then we must choose what works and not what feels righteous anymore. Thank you.
So thank you, Speaker, for that wonderful speech. I would call on the premise giver from the opposing side. You guys can clap as they are coming out.
Starting my speech in 1, 2, 3, go. Placing pragmatism over morality is quenching a fire with gasoline, which we know will ignite even more deadly inferno, leading to corruption and decay. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, and my co-debaters. Standing before you is Joanna Mugene, and I am here to oppose the motion. I am the premise giver, and we are here to oppose the motion which states that Nigeria's pursuit of progress should prioritize pragmatism over morality. We actually absolutely reject that because we understand what it means to be pragmatic. Being pragmatic means doing whatever we want, whatever works, irrespective of whether it is right or wrong. And that is the exact idea why Nigeria is still the way it is up till now. Let's define key concepts. One is pragmatism. Pragmatism has to do with focusing on practical results without considering the ethics of transparency and accountability. Pragmatism is the philosophy of the end justifies the means. What is morality? Morality is not just a religious concept, just like she mentioned, righteousness. That is not morality. Morality has to do with commitment to upholding values of integrity, justice, and even the inherent dignity of every citizen of this country. Morality means adherence to the rule of law and not adherence to the rule of the powerful. Progress, like the opposition might define, is not about GDP. It's not about infrastructure. It's not about rapid economic transformation. Real progress is one that is sustainable, one that is inclusive, and one that is just. So therefore, our proposition's case is entirely based on a flawed premise, because what they want you to understand is that being moral is inherently slow. Why being moral is inherently slow? Why being pragmatic is being inherently effective? Which of course is an error that they want you to believe. But what we want to prove to you is that morality is not the opponent of progress. In fact, morality is the essential architecture or the architect of progress, especially in a country like ours that is developing, Nigeria. And so therefore, what we prove to you on this side of the debate is to make you see that morality is the best thing is to be placed over pragmatism. And so therefore, our first speaker will be coming here. He will be telling you the importance, the roles, the advantages of prioritizing morality over pragmatism. Our second speaker will build on this. Our third speaker would also come and close the debate. To this effect, we conclude by saying that morality should be prioritized over pragmatism. Thank you.
So thank you, Speaker, for that wonderful speech. So let the debate start. I would call on the first speaker from the proposing side to begin the arguments for their own house.
How long shall Nigeria continue to do what is moral and remain where she is? Poverty, insecurity, unemployment has been the order of the day. Even the law recognizes that morality must bow to necessity. Salus populis suprema lex esto, the welfare of the people is the supreme law. All protocols duly observed. I'm Chukuma Ambles, the first speaker of the same proposition panel. Here are my points to back up our argument. First, economic justification. Pragmatism is the art of doing what works and not just what is moral. It is the act of leadership that is guided by results and not just emotions. The status quo reveals Nigerian political leaders who preach morality by using moral slogans such as war against indiscipline, fight against corruption. Yet they came out to tell Nigerians that a monkey carted away with 77 million naira. Or should we talk about the snake that swallowed 36 million naira in cash? Panel, facts they say are sacred. So let's compare with nations that have prioritized pragmatism. In China, 1978, they prioritized pragmatic reforms and they replaced communism with socialism. And this led to the lifting of 800 million people out of poverty. This reduced their poverty level to as low as 1.7% and is the greatest poverty reduction rate that's ever occurred in history. In Singapore, minor bribes are criminalized and given the exact same punishment as major bribes. The citizens cried about fairness, claiming it was immoral, but the result was a more prosperous and almost crime-free state. In Rwanda, after the genocide, under the pragmatic governance of Paul Kagame, they addressed security by adopting the AI-powered surveillance system. The citizens cried about fairness, about privacy, claiming it was immoral, but the result was a 98% security level. As opposed to Nigeria, the giant of Africa, who still ranks one of the most insecure nations in Africa. These nations understood one truth: pragmatism should be the primary step towards achieving a nation's progress. Nigeria's issues is not as a result of moral decadence. It is as a result of loss of a functional system. Also, I'll take you in 1 minute. Also, moral justification. Members of this honorable house, let's be practical. Imagine a country, Nigeria, where poverty and insecurity is on its high. Citizens engage in unwholesome activities, killing, kidnapping, ritual killings, and stealing. When they are caught, panel, they have one echo, and this echo is, oh, I was only hungry and trying to feed my family. This alone proves, panel, that morality cannot be preached to a nation that is broken. If we so desire a morally just nation, we must build a formidable and functional one. POI. Please be fast. Like my premise giver said, morality is very relative. Now, nation A may decide that murder is right. Nation B may decide that murder is wrong. We talk about murder as being right, as being wrong, yes. But imagine when a pedophile is sentenced to death by hanging. We call it justice. So this alone proves that morality is relative. In addition to that, I'll talk about legal justification. Salus populis suprema lex esto, the welfare of the people is the supreme law. According to section 14, subsection 2b of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it states that the welfare of the citizens is the primary purpose of the government. So if any government chooses evidence-based policies that will directly enhance the activities or the welfare of her citizens, she's acting within her constitutional rights. On the other hand, if a government decides to cling to inefficient policies, they are violating these very rights. In conclusion, panel, the team opposition may want to argue about the advocacy, about the autocracy of this government, but I come to tell you today that the team proposition stands to, and we say that we are going to learn from the mistakes of this government. We are not advocating that pragmatism should be a sort of totalitarianism. We are rather saying that pragmatism is going to enhance morality. A wise man, Albert Einstein, once said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, which in this case is Nigeria's continuous advocacy for our morality, which has not worked for the past 65 years since she gained her independence. So we stand here today not to pander to emotions, but on the pedal or the pedestal of logic and reasoning to vehemently propose that pragmatism should be prioritized, because at the end of the day, a working nation can obviously gain or get its moral, but a failing nation would lose its morals and its progress. So we say today, I ask you Nigerians, do we choose to lose our morals and lose our progress, or do we choose to achieve our progress and gain morals in return? Thank you.
So thank you, first speaker, for that wonderful speech. I'll call the first speaker from Nimsa.
All right. I start my speech in 3, 2, 1. My name is Joshua Akman. I'm representing Nimsa and as the first speaker. Now, based on the existing protocols and what the motion which my premise speaker had already laid, it's very critical that we actually analyze this point. And we should understand that regardless of how valuable our society may be, we should not neglect the fact that the moral principles is one of very, very few pillars that has actually held our society together. And let me go on with saying that morality being prioritized in front of pragmatism will lead to the following things. Now, economic stability. When the foreign investors are noticing that this government is basing their strategies, is basing their policies based on the constitutional rights, based on moral principles, they will be better equipped, they will have more trust, trust to put their investment into the country, which will further progress our country. Secondly, let us look at the trust. Deepening trust between government and citizens will further deepen if we practice our moral principles. Several instances, like we've seen in Denmark and several other Scandinavian countries, which has prioritized morality, which has prioritized respecting human rights rather than arbitrary pragmatic situations or pragmatic solutions to certain problems. They are being projected as the happiest nations across the world. And thirdly, I want to talk about security. Even in security, what we are having right now, if we had a much more moral standing to how we fight security, as enshrined in our Terrorism Act in 2022, we would have elimination of this Boko Haram as we see here. But rather, we had certain pragmatic solutions to this situation. Certain leaders thought of it pragmatic to move down to their camps and negotiate with these terrorists. And now we have emboldened them. Look at where we've gotten ourselves to right now. Several nation rebuilding, that's another point. We've seen that in what happened in China. China was devastated after the communist ruling. And when Mao Zedong came in, further propagated by President Xi right now, what we saw is that they deepened their moral standing. They punished individuals. They punished government officials that were found wanting. They punished all those individuals that were found wanting, and also rewarded certain individuals that promoted the goods of the country. They promoted the good of the country and they rewarded them. Look at where they are now. Regardless of the certain pragmatic move that you may think that they did, all of those pragmatic moves were enshrined under the circumference of morality, which we are seeing today. Now, how can we get to that ideal society? By incentivizing good values. We can do that by government moving around and also partnering with schools and to teach these young ones what it means to be moral. Look at the result that is happening in Japan. Those people have one of the best moral index around the world, and look at how developed they are. They are training their kids on how to be moral. Look at where they are. Punishing the individuals and other government officials that may be found wanting. Another way to bring in an ideal moral society that we are seeing today. Is my 3 minutes up? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Can the team opposition give at least 4 nations that prioritize morality and gain progress with evidence here?
4 nations? Evidence, yes. First, yeah, of course. The first one I'll mention is actually Nigeria. The very first time that we had morality enshrined, we created EFCC, we created NAFDAC, we created ICPC, all under President Olusegun Obasanjo. NAFDAC under the rulership of Professor Dora Akinyumi. We had less drug abuse in the country, and we had progress. That's the first country I'm going to mention. The second country I'm going to mention is Denmark. As I said, in those Scandinavian countries, they prioritize morality over pragmatism. And look at where they are now. Regardless of what you would call slow growth, they had steady and much more sustainable growth that we are seeing now. The third example I'll give to you is China. What they did was that several moral institutions that they built right now, which was advanced, which was put in order to fight corruption and the rest. Look at the progress they are making now. Even the fourth example I'll bring to you now is very obvious. What we have now in Russia. Russia actually started when President Putin came into power. What he did was trying to punish the oligarchs that took away their nation's wealth before. Those are moral standings. Those are moral institutions that he actually built. So I don't know if I've been able to convince you, but those are actually 4 nations that have done what I've. So now, if we now put pragmatism in front of morality, what are those diverse effects? Sorry, say it again. What you are putting there is what you are trying to call there is egg before a chicken. That's what you are trying to put there. Pragmatic moves made under the bedrock of morality is what we are talking about here. Rather than enforcing moral, actually pragmatic moves that he thought that they were going to help the economy move forward. But look at where it has brought us down. Even losing allies, we will lose allies. Russia has lost allies based on the war that happened in the 1970s. Several moves that they make, and they are still trying to reconcile their economy. Several moves are also. So what I'm trying to now say is that rather than us prioritizing pragmatism in front of morality, what we should do rather is base our pragmatism around the circumference of morality. That way we can achieve success, true success, not just numbers, not just GDPs, but with people, with human resources advancing from one stage to the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker, for that speech. So, little clarification. When you ask a POI, I automatically pause the person's timer so he can exhaust your question. Then after that, I continue his timer. That is why I have a longer time. So, next speaker.
Can I start? I'll be starting on the count of 3, 2, 1. Today, we stand not to dismiss morality, but to declare a particular truth that history and reality has proven within the course of time. Many great nations that are economically stable and achieve a great deal of success do not achieve this success because of entertaining the thoughts of growth and economic development. It's because that they applied pragmatic reforms. Panel of adjudicators, members of this House, and by name Oji Chimobiko, the second speaker from the proposition side. Panel of adjudicators, it is very, very important that we understand that South Korea, from the ruins of war, developed themselves into a technological powerhouse, not by visualizing perfect leaders, but applying pragmatic reforms that brought them where they are. Vietnam now gains about 36 billion US dollars from international investments, not because they allowed morals to guide them, but morals was there to set them apart. But the major bedrock was the pragmatic reforms. They said market-based pragmatic reforms, and today they entered $6 billion. Not only that, the side proposition kept on mentioning United Arab Emirates. May I stand this clear to you that United Arab Emirates currently stands with a GDP of 50,000 US dollars. Looking at us Nigerians, you used us as an example of a nation that is doing well. We are crippling and struggling with over 2,400 GDP income. Now you preach morality, you preach morality. Are you going to feed your citizens with little or no money? Many individuals go into acts of corruption because there are no funds. Many citizens lie unemployed because there are no jobs so that they can work. If proper pragmatic reforms are being put in place, all these problems will be averted. Panel of adjudicators, members of this House, today, Nigerian is drowning in moral posturing. We preach transparency, but we reward inefficiency. We preach integrity, but we reward mediocrity. How else do you expect us to go far? You kept on talking about the Boko Haram insurgents. Do you know how long it took Nigerians before they were able to curb the Boko Haram insurgents? It is due to lack of pragmatic reforms. That is why we find ourselves here today. Panel of adjudicators, members of this House, we decide proposition and not eliminating morality, but we are saying that pragmatism should be the primary, with morality being the secondary. Moving over to the rebuttal. Panel of adjudicators, before I move over to the rebuttals, we decide proposition are proposing important pragmatic reforms. First, we are prioritizing integrity over mediocrity. We are prioritizing meritocracy over sentiment. We are prioritizing centralized economic planning over democratized the bureaucracy. We are prioritizing strict rules against corruption that will take away all the moral decadence we are seeing in our country today. Properly visualized here are the very important effects or the good deeds that pragmatism has brought. Looking at the diagram here, we can see that most great nations, China, has stood the test of time. In less than 4 decades, China was able to elevate 800 million of their citizens out of poverty. This is the scale pragmatism win. Pragmatism is not all about mere wishful thinking. Pragmatism is what works. Pragmatism works with discipline. Pragmatism studies a country's economic structure and proposes this is what will likely work if employed. It's not all about mentioning that what if this should work. The side opposition kept on mentioning Dora Akunyili, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Dora Akunyili prioritized pragmatism. She put into place strict pragmatic reforms in NAFDAC. That is why it brought about the total elimination of fake drugs in sale. Dora Akunyili also employed pragmatism. That is why she put in strict economic reforms that also helped Nigerians to develop. Your point of information. Panel of adjudicators, members of this House, let's get things clear. For the past six decades, Nigeria has been preaching morality. If Nigeria preaches or are the very epitome or personification of the morality we preach, we wouldn't be hearing such stories as a snake going to the central bank and start swallowing millions of naira. It is due to lack of moral decay. That is why snakes go into federal banks and swallow money. If Nigeria should enforce strict pragmatic reforms, we will find out who stole that money. A snake cannot swallow money. Can eat panel of adjudicators, can eat members of this House, not at all. Proper reforms will ensure that checks and balances will bring about how the money got missing. With that, your point falls. Panel of adjudicators, I would like to bring your attention to the second diagram. Today, Nigeria is characterized by corruption, unemployment. This has led many individuals to have fallen. Panel of adjudicators, if proper pragmatic reforms are put into place, our nation's economy will grow. Unemployed citizens, there will be proper pragmatic reforms to see to it that the rate of unemployment in countries in Nigeria today will be reduced. That is how countries such as China, South Korea, Vietnam, United Arab Emirates, countries that if Nigeria are to properly structure themselves with pragmatic reforms, we do better than they are doing. Going over to the rebuttals, the premise giver from the side proposition mentioned that Nigeria has always prioritized morality. Where has it gotten us to? What do we have to show for it? Remember, you cannot fuel a nation that do not have financial capacity. We have the proper financial capacity, but we do do not have proper pragmatic reforms to help better restructure us to move forward. That is why we face the problem today. So you cannot come and cry morality to a woman who has her babies but has not fed them. We should feed them with honesty. We should feed them with morality. You have to give her the finances, the ability to be able to feed her children by providing employment that she can work and provide for her children. Today, most Nigerian youths go into all forms of fraud and other social vices because of what? There are no proper pragmatic reforms. Secondly, moving over, the Prime Speaker also said that progress is not about economic development. Panel of educators, members of this house, today, the resident doctors have started their strike. Why is it? Because there are no proper pragmatic reforms to prioritize them. That is why today we suffer the consequences. It is very, very important that we memorize or think about this work. Cogito ergo sum. We think, therefore we are. We should prioritize pragmatism because that is the headway. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker, for that wonderful speech. So I'll call the second speaker from OMSA.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I am by name Kweze Chibundu Chisum, the second speaker on the opposition team, Team OMSA, and I will crystallize this debate. Thank you, my opposition speaker, for buttressing our point about morality. Because he came here and was saying pragmatic reforms, and all on top of that, still say that Nigeria is not moral enough. But just making points that are all buttressing morality. So I'm here, I'll first of all start with rebuttals. And each rebuttal I make will lead me to a point on my own side, on my own point. She mentioned countries about South Korea. She mentioned Rwanda. She mentioned countries that were homogeneous in nature. That is, I just want to break that fallacy of imported models. She mentioned countries that were homogeneous in nature, that had a unique cultural texture that made it possible for a top-down control by the government. Nigeria is a federation of more than 250 ethnic groups, vastly diverse, and so trying to enforce that thing is almost impossible. That leads me to my second point, suppression of dissent. For China to be as homogeneous as it was, they had to pick. If you go to today, there are 7 cities that are known as the grade 1 cities, to the degradation of the rest of the city. Mandarin Chinese is the official language of China. There are multiple dialects of Chinese, but every citizen is forced to learn Mandarin Chinese. So imagine trying it in Nigeria. Imagine going to school and you are told that if you are not speaking English, the only other language you can speak is Igbo. What do you think will happen to Nigeria? So trying to suppress dissent is basically trying to go at the core of what makes us Nigerians. So, and I want to tell you that true moralism in action, true morality in action is true pragmatism. The pragmatism is morality in action. Because if this country was moral, all these issues they are mentioning will not be in place in the first place. For instance, in infrastructural decay, if there were fairness in the awardment of contract, if the contract was bid and the people qualified are picked and contract enforced, and not just giving contracts to who you know, our infrastructure will be better developed and we will be able to hold accountable. If the government was accountable to the people, you'll be able to know when things are going wrong, how to hold it, because people will have the trust and they'll be able to hold back their government in place. And I also want to talk about, as she mentioned China, as she was talking, that was a simplification of history. She did not tell us the thousands of people that died under Mao Zedong when the China policy stated. She did not tell us the amount of child trafficking that took place when China instituted its one-child policy. They don't want to even tell us that apart from India, that the country with the largest immigrant domiciliant is China. In the US, in Canada, in Europe, they are one of the largest immigrants. If their country was as good as they are claiming it is, why are they immigrating? Why are they leaving their countries? And then this is also leading me to the point where I say that in Nigeria, we are not too moralistic. It's not morality that is our issue. We are not on this debate to know what is right and what is wrong. We know what is right and what is wrong because our laws and our constitutions are inherently based on ethics of discipline, fairness, individual human rights, and dignity. So we are not here to confuse what is. It's just that our country decides to ignore what is right. And because people have already assumed that you have to do what is wrong to survive. Because that's why I say it's not about trying to do what is right or trying to do. It's being able to know that we have the moral. Yes. No. No. I will not reject a working policy because it feels wrong. Because morality, as we've stated, is not about feelings. Because that's what they are bringing. Morality is definite. It's not subjective. It's something that you know. We Nigerians, if I should come here and raise a gun and point at somebody, you don't need anybody to tell you. You don't need feelings to know that that is inherently wrong. So that's why I'm coming that it's not about, we are not here to argue about what is right and wrong. We know what is right, is that we are choosing to ignore it. And that also leads me to my point that what can happen when we prioritize pragmatism. Look at what happened to Nazi Germany. The leaders that started with, let us forget conscience, let us achieve results. Look at what happened to the end. Look at the atrocities that were committed. That today the name Adolf Hitler is banned. No citizen of Germany can answer that name. And look at what happened after the fall of the USSR, the Cold War, the economic destabilization that took place. That when Putin came in, the first thing he had to do was to clear oligarchs. Because one thing with pragmatism, when pragmatism is taken to the extent without the moral compass of morality, it becomes violence. It leads to tyranny. We've already answered TPOIs, and we're meant to answer TPOIs. Thank you. So tyranny leads to tyranny. And one thing with it, to be able to justify any and almost every evil. Because it means that we're able to justify, oh, let's cancel election because elections are too slow. Oh, let us give this contract to our people because it will be done faster. Because if there's no morality to guide the compass, the next thing that will come about is violence, is repression. And that also leads me to another point, that any progress that does not uplift the people is actually regression. Because the China that they are claiming as it is till today, you can go online and browse and see the quantity of celebrities or the quantity of people that are banned from flying into China because of the quantity of journalists that are blacklisted from reporting on China because the government is trying to censor what the people hear. During the COVID-19, when the World Cup was going on, broadcasters that had to broadcast in China, they were not allowed to show the stadiums so that Chinese citizens will not know that other countries are outside. Is that what we want to happen in Nigeria? Is that the situation we are calling for in Nigeria? I want you to vote for a Nigeria where integrity is not optional, where the citizens do not fear their government, but rather where they know their right from their wrong and can stand to hold their government accountable. Thank you.
So thank you, Speaker, for that wonderful speech. I would call the closer for the proposition. Ready whenever you are.
Okay, my time starts. 3, 2, 1. Honorable adjudicators, distinguished audience, good afternoon. Today's debate is not about choosing between evil and good. It's about choosing between what works and what merely sounds righteously, theoretically. Today's debate is about choosing between life and death. Sitting beside you right here is a gun. You see somebody approaching you with a knife, ready to stab you. You have two options, life and death. Life is to shoot the person and you leave. That is pragmatic. Death is to stay, thinking about what people will say, the sentiments people will make, and then you die in the process while the person stabs you right there and then. Nigeria is in a state of death. For over 60 years, we have prioritized morality. And what is the result? Citizens are hungry, insecurity, unemployment. Is this what we want for our country, Nigeria? We are here stating today that pragmatic reforms need to be made. My speakers here have already stated this. We are not copying exactly from these nations. We are rather emphasizing on the successes that they've gained and still remodeling them to be able to achieve these better results that we are hoping for. See, the greatest form of morality is a country that can cater for the needs of her citizens. See, pragmatism is not wickedness. I need us to understand this. It is wisdom with results. It is a place where you have the choice of making drastic decisions that can help your citizens over mere moral theories that sounds holy. I need you to understand the reason why opposition falls for today's debate. They've come here telling us about trust and how morality builds trust. But morality without results, does it not destroy trust, ladies and gentlemen? They told us that pragmatism is going to bring corruption. Corruption in itself is not as a result of moral hypocrisy, where our leaders come to tell us lies and things that we want to hear, that sounds pleasant to our ears, while not doing what works for us. Ladies and gentlemen, today we've defined pragmatism to mean what works for Nigeria. So if side opposition have been able to convince us, which they clearly haven't been able to convince us, that morality, if being prioritized, is going to be what will work for Nigeria, then that is pragmatic, and we concede and we win today's debate. See, I want you to understand this. We are not rejecting morality, like they are saying. We are not rejecting morality. Rather, we are saying that pragmatism should be the foundation on which morality can stand as a luxury. So tell me now, what do Nigerians need? We need better working system, fewer holy slogans. We need better working infrastructure and other things, fewer moral speeches by telling us Enugu is the country of the Lord. The Lord is the one taking care of Enugu. Let's look at these things. Nigeria is, at this our debate today, is at the point of its urgency. Nigeria, we need to make drastic decisions here and now. Look at the enormous benefits that we stand to share if we prioritize pragmatism. We get to compete with nations like China and other places in technology and other things. We medical students seated here will not have to go through the rigorous processes of writing USMLEs and pay those ridiculous amounts because we are trying to move to the US. Rather, most of them will be doing, the American citizens will be the one doing the medical tourism because they want to come and benefit from our system. I want us to understand this thing. Children like Ochanya will not die and go through this pain because of their living in a society where morality is being prioritized. People are afraid of saying the truth because they are trying to look at what people will say and know. They will be in a system that is pragmatic where people that are doing these things will be penalized and killed. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that someday when pragmatism has been prioritized in Nigeria, we all will be able to hoist the Nigerian flag as proud citizens of Nigeria. Why? Because pragmatism has been prioritized and our system would not fail us. Ladies and gentlemen, for this reason, I, Enisha Makadabara, as the closing speaker, is proud to propose. Thank you.
So I'd call the closer for the opposition team to end the debate.
So I start my debate in 3, 2, 1. Okay, good day, judges, accurate timekeeper, and my beautiful audience. So this debate has not, okay, my name is Okafor Chudubem and I'll be the closing speaker representing the opposing team. This debate has not been about whether we desire progress. We all do. But this debate has been what is the nature of that progress. The proposition team is offering us an unstable idea. They're telling us we for a progress that is what, let's say, that is not holistic, that is hollow, and that it concentrates on a specific amount of people. But with the proposing team, we are proposing a progress that is holistic, inclusive, and then it is not materialistic. So let us be clear on our stance this evening. First of all, the proposition's case is built on the false claim. They think that we must choose between what is right and what works. But from our argument, we have shown that in the long run, that what is right is what works. This state of pragmatism is what has led us, this state of pragmatism without principle is what has led us to our current conditions, where politicians do what they like, what they care without repercussions. Also, then there's an argument on trust. Our first speaker established the fact that without the moral currency of trust, that no nation can develop. But then we have understood that, first of all, that this proposition model actually spends this currency until the nation is bankrupt. And can we be honest? Without trust, tell me what nation undergoes manageable progress. Then, secondly, there's an argument on our second speaker debunked their imported model, in the sense that the pragmatic model actually, it destabilizes, a pragmatic model actually suppresses the diversity of the country. For instance, Nigeria is a multi-diversified nation with different cultural background and ethnicity. Tell me how one rule will be a rule for one that is favoring one culture will favor all. It cannot work. Our moral stand, which is built on justice, equity, and fairness, will favor all our beautiful diversity. Next, also, the proposition is asking that we temporarily sacrifice our conscience for a better Nigeria. But our past national history have shown us from our past military dictators that this temporary sacrifice actually usually becomes permanent, where the pragmatic thieves of yesterday are the established leaders of today. Say Buhari. Also, in conclusion, we are not actually saying that you should just choose morality. No, we're actually saying that you choose the most pragmatic long-term strategy, which is a Nigeria that fights corruption with transparency, not brutality. A Nigeria that actually solves insecurity with justice, not brutality also. We are telling you to vote for a Nigeria that builds her economy on merit, not fraudulent activity and cronyism. In the long run, this is not a slow path. It is the only path. It is the only path to a Nigeria where we can say this Nigeria is not just rich, but is wealthy in spirit. This Nigeria is not just stable, but is just. This Nigeria is not just developed, but is also what is great. So, okay, thank you. In conclusion, this is not the only way, but I urge the judges to stand with the right team. Join morality for a Nigeria that works, for a Nigeria that is most likely to be living in, that we are proud of. I urge you to side with us in prioritizing morality over pragmatism. Thank you.
So hold it. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, debaters, for that wonderful debate. So both teams, you guys should come out on the stage. the judges are going to ask you guys a few questions. The answers you give to the questions would probably determine whether you win or not.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Izzy Desmond, and I'm a judge for this debate finals. My first question goes to Epsumsa, right? Okay, you are supporting that pragmatism works over morality. Am I right? Okay. All right. So my question here goes. When your support and the stance of your support states that what works, works, does that outrightly disregard morality?
No, we clearly stated it in our speech that if side proposition is able to convince us that morality is going to be what would work for Nigeria, if prioritized over pragmatism, then that works. And our definition for pragmatism clearly states that pragmatism is what works for Nigeria. So that does not deny morality. It's rather saying that if morality is what works, then that is pragmatic, and that's what we are preaching.
You still did not answer the question.
Come again.
And I want you to get the question very well while you are answering. My question is, we are not trying to put pragmatism and morality side by side. My question is, if you are supporting the fact or your stance is that pragmatism is what works, does that outrightly disregard morality,
No.
regardless of your opponent's stance?
No.
What are your supports for that?
I mentioned that pragmatism is the foundation through which morality can stand as luxury. I believe that answers your question. So it doesn't outrightly disregard morality. We are saying that morality should be secondary to pragmatism. Thank you.
All right.
When we are done with proposition, we will then go over to opposition. Suicide proposition, one of your major arguments were, okay, so personal belief, yeah? I feel like when you decide to choose pragmatism over morality in a society that's not moral, most of the case studies you guys are giving us, China and the rest of them, I need you guys to give me 4 countries which are as immoral as Nigeria, but through pragmatism achieved sustainable progress. 4 countries that are as immoral as Nigeria, but yet achieved a sustainable progress.
Okay, so if I understood your question well, you are saying countries that are as immoral as Nigeria. Okay, so I need you to understand that with the...
I don't want to understand
Okay,
anything.
beautiful. My explanation to this question is this. With the info slide we're given, it's clearly evident that Nigeria has not been prioritizing pragmatism. So Nigeria can rather, in the other stance, be described as a country that has rather been prioritizing morality for the over 60 years. So if you ask such a question, that a country as immoral as Nigeria, I think using from the context of the info slide you gave us, Nigeria has rather been more moral, and yet we've not been achieving the results. We have been tagged as one of the highest countries with Christianity and other religions, but yet we've not been achieving the results, and that's why we've been saying we should prioritize pragmatism.
4 countries that are as immoral as Nigeria, but yet achieved sustainable progress.
right. USA, China, Vietnam, and South Korea. Thank you.
First of all, I want to commend each and every one of you. You have really spoken well. So to SYMPOSIUM, have you heard of consequentialism before? Have you heard of consequentialism?
No, please define it.
If I define it, it's going to actually affect the questions I have for both teams. But have you heard of, any of you, have you people heard of consequentialism before? In morality, have you heard of consequentialism before?
No.
Okay. So, you have been mentioning about pragmatism, reforms, what works. In your own understanding of everything you've been saying here now, do you think that pragmatism, if it's done in Nigeria, if it's going to be very beneficial, or if it's going to be dangerous to the citizens?
We mentioned something ever since the onset of our debates, that we are not dismissing morality. But we also mentioned that pragmatism works with strict economic discipline. We also mentioned that pragmatism works with industrial professionalism. And we also mentioned about pragmatic reforms. Now, if pragmatism should be prioritized in Nigeria with strict discipline, measures put into place, checks and balances, curbing of corruption, remember, during the course of our arguments, a point was raised by the side opposition where they talked about a snake going into and swallowing millions. If pragmatic reforms are being put into place, proper checks and balances will be assured. How do we mean this? Pragmatism works with proper centralized economic planning. It goes further, organizes bodies that sees into it how some issues come up and better work at it based on discipline. Most of these disciplinary measures may, at its own, seem as if it's infringing on the rights of individuals who are involved. But pragmatism sees that the works get done through discipline and things that can be very, very crystal clear to individuals who see how it goes.
All right. To Team Onsa, your stance is supporting morality. All right. So I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to listen attentively and answer accurately. Morality that is bettered on religious grounds, is morality bettered on religious grounds pragmatic across every religion? If not, how can it then be pragmatic as a whole? I'll give you a case scenario. The Muslims have their own beliefs. The Christians have their own beliefs. Right? We call them morals. That strengthens their religious values. Good. Now, we are talking about a nation, and we have diverse religious societies in a nation. So if we bet a particular religion, and we want to apply it across a nation, how can we do so? Or the first question is it even practical to do so? That's the first question. Now, the follow-up question is, if you answer yes to the previous one, how can it be so?
Thank you. Well, from what you've said, it's actually very practical. Every religion, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, traditional religion, they have fundamental values. So if we can pick a particular religion, like even Christianity, for instance, and pick its fundamental values: do not kill, do not steal, and actually enforce it pragmatically, we can spread it across board. That's why I'm saying that if we pick a particular religion, it's going to work, and we can spread it across board by picking its fundamental core values. That's the answer. You see how can it work?
Yes. Did you say yes, it can work?
Yeah, I say yes.
Then how can it work?
As I said before,
Yes.
I said how it can work is by selectively picking the fundamental core values. If you check all the religions, regardless, traditional, Buddhist, Muslim, and the rest, they have core values. The Muslim says, do not steal. God, Christian, the Christian God says, do not steal. The Muslim God says, do not kill. The Christian God says, do not kill. Even the Buddhist say, love your neighbor, give to the poor. The same thing as does the Muslim, the same thing as the Christians. So they have core fundamental values. So if we can pick these core fundamental values, we can spread it across board, both here, abroad, USA, anywhere you want to practice it, sir.
Just a follow-up to what you answered. You cited the generally accepted morals, do not kill, do not steal. I don't think any religion will support that. I'll give you an instance. The Muslims say, when you steal, if your hand causes you to steal, cut it off. Right? Good. And the Christians say, when you steal, you come to your altar and ask God for forgiveness. Now we are trying to enforce a particular law that will guide societal values, that will prevent people from stealing. And the Muslims believe that if you steal, we cut off your hand. And the Christians are saying, come to the altar and kneel down and ask for forgiveness. Now, I'm not saying if as a policymaker in government, I decide to go through the Muslim angle and say, let's enforce the fact that if you steal, we cut off your hand. Will that be applicable for the Christian community?
Well, let's say we've picked the Muslim, for instance. We can't actually use specific extreme rules that the Muslim has set up and cross it across board to both Christians and the rest, because we have already established our rule of law, which sees everyone equal before the eyes of the law, rather than one religion being superior to the other. So why I said yes in the first instance was because of the relatable fundamental values, but the extreme values which certain religions might have cannot spread across board. Yes.
Quick question, I would not even bother you guys with time. So now, you guys keep talking about morality. Nigeria, inherently of when it started to exist, has been tagged as an immoral based on corruption and things like that. So that over decades, over centuries, we've been trying to curb out this kind of corruption. So we've been always going with morality inherently. Let's assume that we've been always going with morality. The only thing now it has caused is that we have gone too low in our economic status. So do you choose a society that keeps foreseeing morality as a solution, but then keeps subjecting its citizens to core poverty? Do you support a society that keeps foreseeing an unrealistic morality journey to citizens, to subjecting their citizens to core poverty?
No.
Why?
Because as we first of all stated, that is not true morality. And because, as I've already said, I said that morality in action is true pragmatism. They've said that the welfare of the citizen is the first priority of the state. So as a moral person, you have to uphold that which puts you in authority, the role you are to play, and the place you are in power. So if all the politicians should keep to what puts them in place and the trust that is placed upon them by their citizens, this question about whether it should be regressing into will not regress, because your primary purpose as the president, your moral duty as the president, is to execute your duties efficiently and effectively.
Okay, sir. Morality and ethics, are they the same thing?
They are based on the same principles.
They are based, okay, what are the principles?
For instance, as he has first of all stated, we started with the rule of law. And in the rule of law, there are different sections under the rule of law. So we based our morality on the rule of law because it's a universally acclaimed declaration that is applicable in any country, on almost every country in the world.
Okay, ethics normally tells us about doing what's right and doing, like, to know the difference between what is right and wrong, which I believe is the same point you people have been buttressing here about what is right and wrong. So have you heard of the theories of ethics before?
I've heard some, but at this point, I do
Okay,
not
there
know.
are two major theories of ethics. There is the consequentialism, which was what I wanted to ask them, and there is the ontology. So, do you people know the difference between the two? Okay. So now consequentialism says that whatever you're doing, the end justifies the means. So even if you're doing something wrong and at the end it brings something good, that you should go ahead and do it. And since we've agreed now that ethics is going with what is right and what is wrong, and a theory under ethics has told us that if what you're doing now will actually yield fruits, you should continue. Why deontology will tell us that if this is wrong, don't do it. If this is right, do it. So now my question is, using these two theories that I've painted, if your brother here now happens to be the governor of this, okay, let's just use the word the president of the, in short, your MSA president now, and he's corrupt, will you follow consequentialism and rat him out? Let's say that there is a very big punishment for him. He's going to be expelled. He's in his finals. He has spent 8 years in school. He's going to be expelled if he is being found guilty. So to you now, which of the theories are you going to follow and why?
If the two theories that you even stated applies in this condition, because he said what is right, what is wrong, and at the end justifies the means. So at this point in time that he is corrupt, what is that end? What is the end of that his corruption? What is it resulting to at that point in time? So as I've stated, for it to be a punishable offense that will make him be expelled, it means it's something that has caused denigration or caused harm to the association where he is seated as the head. So even using the theory of the end justifying the means, I will still report him. Using the theory of whether right or wrong, I will still report him.
Okay, debaters, you guys are going to come back by 6:25. 6:25. We want to call it discourse, and Emily Obak will call the results.